Welcome to the first video in our series about your pathway into med in Australia. My name is Raman, and in this series, we will be covering everything you need to know and do in order to get into medical school in Australia, as well as giving you some helpful tips along the way. Everything we cover and more is also on our website, into-med.com.au, so feel free to check that out for more information and details on your pathway into med. This is a timeline for your pathway into med. These are the things that you're going to have to do and consider as you go along your journey. So it's important to understand exactly what you have to do and what each of these steps entail. But don't worry, as current medical students and students who have walked this path before, we're here to help guide you along this difficult journey. So without further ado, let's get into the first step and the topic of this video, the UCAT. The UCAT, or the University Clinical Aptitude Test, is an aptitude test designed to test clinical skills that medical professionals and students are expected to have. However, it's probably unlike any test you've sat before. There is no prescribed content or background knowledge. But don't be fooled. This does not mean you don't need to study or prepare for it. However, this does mean that a different type of preparation is required. The UCAT is a delicate balance between timing and skills. Any strategy that you can learn to help you maximize this balance will give you an edge. There are 5 different subtests in the UCAT, each with a unique number and type of questions and a unique time. Although the entire test is 2 hours long, you can only spend the allocated time on each subtest. That is, even if you have 5 minutes to spare in verbal reasoning, you cannot transfer that time to the next section. Similarly, you cannot skip or go back to a section once you have completed it and moved on to the next one. Each section also has a 1-minute introduction with instructions, which can give you a breather. That's why the times in the table only add up to 115 minutes, not 120 minutes. This slide gives an insight into what each section largely assesses. Verbal reasoning assesses reading comprehension. Decision-making assesses logic and reasoning. Quantitative reasoning assesses mathematics and the interpretation of data. Abstract reasoning assesses pattern recognition. And situational judgment looks at ethical reasoning. In comparison to the ATAR, which provides a percentile from 0 to 99.95, the UCAT is scored out of 3,600, which correlates to a percentile from 0 to 99. The time restrictions are much more severe. However, there is more leniency to drop marks, and all the questions are either multi-choice or drag and drop. Each subtest has a raw score for the number of correct questions. However, you only receive a scale score from 300 to 900. For example, if you get 32 questions correct out of a total of 44 questions for verbal reasoning, you might get a scale score of 700. This scale score doesn't really change from year to year. It's just a way of standardizing the scores from each subtest because they have different numbers, types, and difficulties of questions. Your UCAT score is the total of all of these scale scores added up, except situational judgment. Therefore, you will receive a total UCAT score from 1,200 to a maximum of 3,600. Situational judgment is still given a scale score from 300 to 900, like the other sections, but is not counted in the overall score, and is instead separate. Your percentile score is then calculated afterwards, once everyone who has completed the test has done so, to see where your UCAT score ranks with everyone else who did the test that year. For example, if you get a scale score of 3000, that might correlate to a 97th percentile, which means you scored higher than 97% of the people who did it. The highest percentile possible is the 99th percentile. You cannot get a 100th percentile. It is important to remember that percentiles will change from year to year, depending on the difficulty of the test. For example, referring to the percentile comparisons for the UCAT scores from 2019 to 2020 below, we can infer that the 2019 UCAT test was more difficult than the 2020 UCAT test. So what is a good UCAT score? Well, this is a very hard question to answer, especially because it differs between years, based on how easy or difficult the test was that particular year, and also depending on what scores each university is looking for. Generally, anything above the 90th percentile would be enough to get an interview at most universities within your state or territory, provided you have a competitive ATAR as well. To be very competitive for a spot and potentially to receive interstate interview offers, you should aim for a score in the 95th percentile or above. Generally, this correlates to a raw score of around 3000 and above. You should keep a close eye on the timings for each section. Flag or skip questions in order to be time efficient. Triage and prioritize questions in order to save time. You do not have to complete all the questions in the same order. It is useful to familiarize yourself with the route to the test center prior to the day of the test. The most important technique to improve your results in the UCAT is to do lots of practice questions. If you need help studying for the UCAT or you would like more practice questions, check out into-med.com.au. In terms of the timeline for the UCAT process, we only have generalized key dates for the UCAT, as they can vary slightly from year to year. Generally, registration opens in early March and closes in mid to late May. The testing period runs throughout the month of July, and percentiles are released in September. Your UCAT score will be sent privately to you soon after you complete the test, often on the same day, so you don't have to wait anxiously for very long. The percentiles, however, will take longer to calculate and are usually released months after the testing period, usually around September. To register for the UCAT, first you need to set up an account with Pearson VUE, the organization which runs the UCAT, and register a date to sit the test. Note that in order to book a test, it will cost a fee. On the test day itself, you should arrive early and be prepared to take the test, both mentally and physically. This involves a good night's rest and even traveling the route to the test center prior in order to familiarize yourself. That's it for the UCAT. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, leave a comment below or send us an email at contact@into-med.com.au. We'll see you in the next video.